I'm Iqbalur Rahman. I teach political science in Department of Political Science, Aligarh Muslim University. Today, I will cover the League of Nations. The League of Nations, the first fully international organizations, and in this course, in this discussion of today, what we will do, that we will talk about the origin, structure, and the functions and role of the League of Nations. Dear students, League of Nations, we know that it failed, but it was in fact the first organization which could be described as first full-fledged international organization with a permanent structure and large-scale participation. All states which were sovereign, they were party to it. They were one way or other linked to the organization, League of Nations. This is the fact which relate to the League of Nations and its formation. One interesting point which I would narrate here for you to understand, that structures like United Nations or back into history, they were generally the outcome of the consequences of the war. Therefore, League of Nations was also the product of the First World War, which happened from 1914. The League was established in 1920 as a global organization to oversee international relations and maintain peace. Its primary goal, as are stated in the covenants, include preventing wars through collective security, disarmament, and settling international disputes through negotiations and arbitration. After the First World War, the need for the organization was felt. If we take a look at the history, we see that this was the first time in 1920 that an international governmental organization was created. But as an idea, we see that scholars, philosophers have talked about, written about, advocated for creating an organization which shall unite the world. First World War was very devastating conflict that claimed millions of lives. The horrors of war fueled a desire for peace and new approach to international relations. The League Nations was seen as a way to address the causes of war and prevent future conflicts. As I referred, the scholars have written about the necessity, the need for organization to to address the issue of conflict, uh, Immanuel Kant was the very famous scholar in this regard, who has written a book on perpetual peace in 1795. His vision was a community of peaceful nations cooperating to prevent conflict. His ideas, though not outline a specific organization, but laid the groundwork for the future peace initiatives. The idea was new. His idea was not given due recognition by the states, so his idea was not put into reality, and that actually helped create the organization of League of Nations after the First World War. For the creation of League of Nations, many of the proposals were made. The first scheme for international organization to prevent future wars began to gain considerable public support, particularly in the United Kingdom and the United States. Goldsworthy Lowes Dickinson, a British political scientist, coined the term League of Nations in 1914 and drafted a scheme for its organization. Together with Lord Wyse, he played a leading role in founding of the group of internationalist pacifists known as the Bryce Group. Other proposals were made that led to the creation of United League of Nations. In the establishment of the League of Nations, Paris Peace Conference of 1919, Wilson, Cecil, Smiths presented draft proposals. Hurst Miller drafted the covenant basis. League approved on 25 January 1919. Covenant drafted by a special commission. It was established by Part 1 of the Treaty of Versailles. 44 states, including 31 from Triple Entente, signed on 28 June 1919. League's structure and functions, like all organizations, as we have learned from the history, that organizations which were formed back in the history, they had commonly three structures. One, the assembly, which you can call as General Assembly. So League of Nations also had General Assembly. All members were party. All members were represented in the General Assembly. It had Executive Council, consisted of major powers. It also had Permanent Secretariat, and it also consisted of international agencies like Permanent Court of International Justice, Disarmament Commission, Health Organization, International Labour Organization, Mandates Commission. The League Assembly consisted of representatives from all member states, up to 3 representatives per state with 1 vote each. Each member state was supposed to send 3 representatives, but each state had 1 vote. It met in Geneva annually, used to elect president, establish rules. The functions of the League of Nations, basic functions were admissions of new members, periodical election of non-permanent council members, election of judges for the permanent court. It also had constituent functions, like it played key role in amending the League's covenant, approval required for the ratification of Secretary General's appointment by the Council. Other than these 2 functions, the League had deliberative functions. When I say League, here I mean the assembly of the League. It acted as a world parliament. It deliberated on matters related to international peace and security. It supervises technical committees and revised the budget prepared by the Secretariat. The League Council, the important organ of the League of Nations. The League Council acted as the executive body of the organization. Initially, there were 4 permanent members and 4 non-permanent members in the council. The permanent members were Great Britain, France, Italy, and Japan. The non-permanent members were elected by the Assembly for a period of 3 years. The composition of the council was changed a number of times. The number of non-permanent members was first increased to 6 in 1922 and then to 9 in 1926. Later, after Germany and Japan both left the League, the number of non-permanent seats was increased from 9 to 11. And the Soviet Union was made a permanent member, giving the council to a total 15 members. Council met on an average 5 times. During 1920 to 1939, the council conducted a total of 107 sessions. Each council member had 1 vote. The presidency of the council changed in each session. It met whenever occasion demanded. the Council enjoyed wide powers to deal with any matters affecting world peace. It had actually the power to prevent the wars, but it could not do it because of the structural problems which were there within the League's covenant. So that ultimately fueled the failure of Council. Powers of the Council, I think it is necessary to mention here wide powers to address matters affecting world peace. It had authority to deal with plans for the reduction of arms. I mean that its role was supposed to help the disarmament. Its role was also, its power was to institute inquiries in disputes between member states. And above all, one thing which is very important, use of force. The covenant provided to the Council that in case of aggression, the Council could recommend the use of force to settle disputes. I would say that Council played a very important role in maintaining peace and security. This was the focus of the powers of the Council that it had to fulfill regarding the covenant of the League of Nations. So under the covenant of the League, the Council's role was basically to maintain international peace and security. Without secretariat, any organization, it would not be in a position to successfully function. So, League of Nations had a permanent secretariat. The permanent secretariat established at Geneva comprised a body of experts in various spheres under the direction of the Secretary General. The Secretary General was appointed by the Council with the approval of the Assembly. All the appointments of the Secretariat is made by the Secretary General with the approval of the Council. The function of the Secretariat was preparing the agenda for the Council and the Assembly. Very important function. Very important function. I would say that is required for any secretariat, that the first role is to prepare the agenda for the discussion, deliberation in Assembly and the Council. So this was the function of the Secretariat. Publishing reports of meeting and other routine matters was also the very relevant function of the Secretariat. And the other function, which I must mention here, was the civil services of the League of Nations. it acted as the civil service of the League of Nations. The role of the permanent secretariat served as the backbone of the League's administration. Administrative functions, very important to make the organization functioning, live, and to be seen as working. Integral in supporting the council and assembly in their decision-making process, the administrative set up, the secretariat, that was very essential, and it demonstrated the League's commitment to international cooperation and coordination. Permanent Court of International Justice. The League covenant by Article 41 provided for the establishment of the Permanent Court of International Justice. The Council of the Assembly established the constitution of the court. Its judges were elected by the Council and Assembly, and its budget was provided by the League of Nations. I mean, the court had no independent source of finance. The finances of the court, they were met out of the funds of the League of Nations. The court was supposed to hear and decide any international dispute which the parties concerned submitted to it. It might also give an advisory opinion on any dispute or question referred to it by the council or the assembly. The court was open to all nations of the world under certain conditions. The court consisted of 11 judges and 4 deputy judges elected by the assembly in conjunction with the council. The court came into being in 1992. The judges of the court used to enjoy the 9-year term. The jurisdiction of the court was open to all nations under specific conditions. It ensures a global and inclusive approach to dispute resolution. So, what I think is required here and essential for you to understand that other than the League of Nations, the permanent court which it established, that was supposed to function independently as a court of arbitration, a court which came into being to dispute resolution and continued even after the Second World War, which was made part of the main organs of the United Nations. League of Nations also had specialized agencies and mandate system. Specialized agencies and mandate system. We also see that this kind of the system in the United Nations nations also. Or I would say that from the experience of the United Nations, the specialized agencies and the mandate system was incorporated when the United Nations was formed. The International Labour Organization, which still exists, which was created in 1919, and it functions as the specialized agencies of the United Nations. The Treaty of Versailles created ILO, International Labour Organization. The ILO, although having the same members as the League and being subject to the budget control of the Assembly, was an autonomous organization with its own governing body, its own general conference, and its own secretariat. ILO successfully engaged in many labor issues. It successfully convinced several countries to adopt an 8-hour workday and 48-hour working week. It also campaigned to end child labor, increase the rights of women in the workplace, and make ship owners liable for accidents involving seamen. After the end of the League of Nations, League survived and was incorporated in 1946 in the structures of United Nations. One thing which I would like to mention here, particularly in reference to ILO, said this is this organization or the specialized agencies of the League of Nations, later part of the United Nations. It has contributed so much to the cause of people pertaining to all matters relating to work. In the field of work, its role is tremendous, so successful that if we count, if we only take into consideration the contributions made by this organization towards the people who work, towards the labor, towards the women, towards the children, this organization, we would say that is the organization which must be commended and its role must be recognized. We must understand that this fact of the ILO, only one specialized agencies, how much it has indirectly contributed to peace. For establishing peace, there are mechanisms. One mechanism is direct one. The other is indirect. Establishing peace through indirect means. So, this specialized agency actually helped in avoiding the conflicts by addressing the issues of labor, resolving them, and thereby establishing peace. So, other than the International Labour Organization, Slavery Commission was a noteworthy contribution, a major specialized agency of the League. It sought to eradicate slavery and slave trading across the world and fought against the evil of forced prostitution. By the intervention of the Commission, slavery was abolished in mandated countries. The League secured a commitment from Ethiopia to end slavery as a condition of membership in 1926. So, Slavery Commission was the specialized agencies and it contributed successfully towards the various roles which League of Nations actually carried out and contributed towards the peace, towards resolution of the conflicts which might have taken violent shape. The League of Nations also established a commission for refugees to look after the interest of the refugees, including overseeing their repatriation and resettlement. At the end of the First World War, there were 2 to 3 million ex-prisoners of war from various nations spread throughout Russia. The Commission for Refugees actually helped majority of them to return home and settle. The Commission also established the national passport as a means of identification for stateless people. The Committee for the Study of the League of Nations, the Committee for the Study of Legal Status of Women was an other agency of the League which dealt with the issues of women. It sought to inquire into the status of women all over the world. It was formed in 1937 and later became part of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. The other structural part of the League of Nations was the mandate system. Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations provided for a mandate system. This system was designed for the administration of freed colonies all over the world. At the end of the First World War, the Allied powers were seriously confronted with the question of the disposal of the former German colonies in Africa and the Pacific, and the several non-Turkish provinces of the Ottoman Empire. The Paris Peace Conference adopted the principle that these territories should be administered by different governments on behalf of the League. This was a system of national responsibility subject to international supervision. This plan is called mandate system. The permanent mandate system, the Permanent Mandate Commission of the League supervised mandated system. The power of the mandate system was to govern the mandatory the power of the mandate system was to govern the territories by mandatory powers, to administer until deemed capable of self-government. This was transferred to the United Nations Trust territories after the League was demised.